The town where he lived was small, quiet, peaceful. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone else, where neighbors greeted each other by name, and where nothing unexpected ever seemed to happen. A slow river flowed along the edge of town, moving gently through the fields and forests. Life in the town moved the same way. Slow, predictable, comfortable. For most people, that was enough. They enjoyed the simple routine, the familiar streets. The same faces, the same stories repeated year after year. But for him, it sometimes felt like the world was too small. Ever since he was young, he had wondered what existed beyond the mountains surrounding the town. Beyond the clouds, beyond the sky itself. At night, while everyone else slept, he would sit outside and stare upward for hours. The stars were not just distant lights to him, they felt like a message. A question, a reminder that there was something far bigger waiting beyond the limits of human sight. He never knew why he felt that way. He simply did. People in town thought he was a little unusual. Not in a bad way, just different. He was quiet, polite, always respectful. He went to work every morning, completed his daily tasks, helped neighbors when they needed it, and returned home before sunset. His life appeared completely ordinary, but inside his mind, nothing was ordinary. His thoughts constantly traveled to places he had never visited, worlds he had never seen, civilizations he had never met. Sometimes he wondered if his imagination was simply too active. Other times, he wondered if those dreams were something else, because there were moments when he dreamed of places that felt strangely familiar. Alien landscapes, strange skies, voices speaking languages he didn't understand. And yet, when he woke up, he remembered every detail, the colors, the sounds, the feeling, like memories from a life he had never lived. He never told anyone. Who would believe him? His friends would laugh. His neighbors would say he spent too much time thinking. So he kept those thoughts hidden, until one night, everything changed. He was sitting beside the river, looking at the stars like he had done 1,000 times before. The sky was perfectly clear. The entire town was asleep. Then something appeared above the horizon. At first, he thought it was a shooting star. But it wasn't falling. It was moving slowly, silently. A shape unlike anything he had ever seen. The object stopped directly above the town. The stars around it seemed to disappear. And for the first time in his life, he felt something looking back. Not a machine. Not a force. Something alive. His heart began beating faster. Because deep inside, a strange thought entered his mind. A thought that made no sense. A thought he could not explain. It found me. The lights above him grew brighter. And the quiet life he had always known ended forever. It began slowly. At first, it was just a feeling, a small pull at the edges of his mind, a sense that someone or something was watching over him. Then, strange things started happening. On some nights, lights appeared in the sky that were not planes, not stars, not anything he had ever seen before. They glowed in colors he could not name, shifting and moving in ways that made his heart race with fear and excitement at the same time. Sometimes objects in his house seemed to move slightly, as if someone invisible had touched them. A cup on the table would be slightly closer to the edge than he remembered. A book would lie open, where it had not been before. He could not explain these things, and yet he felt no threat. It was more like the world itself was trying to whisper a secret to him, a secret that only he could hear. Even in his dreams, the feeling grew stronger. He dreamed of places that were not on any map, of landscapes with colors brighter than anything he had ever seen. In these dreams, he was not himself. Yet, he was always there, walking through cities that floated above clouds, across rivers that glowed softly in the night, surrounded by beings that did not speak in words, but in feelings and lights. Every time he woke, the memory of the dreams lingered, as though they were real moments he had lived somewhere far away. Friends noticed the change. They would ask him why he looked tired, or why his eyes seemed distant, as if he were listening to someone they could not hear. He tried to explain, but they laughed softly, thinking he was joking or overthinking. His family, though concerned, could not understand. How could they? They lived simple lives tied to routine, grounded in what was familiar. His experiences were too strange, too different from anything they could imagine, so he kept them to himself, feeling both loneliness and a strange connection to something larger than the town, larger than the world itself. The pull toward the forest began subtly. At first, it was a dream, a place he had never seen except in glimpses of light and shadow. Then, in his waking life, he would find himself walking near the edge of the forest, staring into the dark trees, as if they held answers to questions he could not yet ask. The forest seemed ordinary to anyone else, but to him, it hummed with life, almost calling his name and whispers he could not understand. The closer he got, the stronger the feeling became, as if the air itself wanted him to step inside. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of orange and violet, he felt a sudden, undeniable pull. Something inside him told him that tonight, he would see what he had been searching for all his life. The town was quiet, the streets were empty. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. He walked slowly toward the forest, heart pounding, hands trembling slightly. Every step felt like a step into a story that had already begun, a story that he had been part of without knowing it. As he reached the first line of trees, a light appeared in the distance. It was soft at first, like the glow of fireflies, but it grew brighter, forming shapes he could not name. He stopped and stared, frozen between fear and awe. The light pulsed gently, and with each pulse he felt a wave of emotions, calmness, curiosity, hope, and something deeper he could not describe. It felt alive, almost as if it knew him, remembered him, and had been waiting for him. Suddenly, he felt a presence, powerful yet gentle, standing just beyond the trees. He could not see clearly, but he felt it, an energy that was both comforting and commanding. The air itself seemed different here, charged with a quiet electricity that made the hair on his arms rise. His heart raced, but there was no panic. Instead, he felt a sense of anticipation, as if everything he had ever felt, every strange dream, every moment of wonder, had led him to this place. For hours he stood there, unsure of what to do. The forest around him seemed to breathe, and the light shifted slowly, forming patterns he could not understand, but somehow recognized. He wanted to speak, to ask who or what was there, but words failed him. Instead, he closed his eyes and listened, letting the feelings wash over him. It was in this quiet moment that he understood he was not alone. Something extraordinary had found him, and he had been ready, even if he did not yet know it. As night fell fully, the lights intensified, and he felt a gentle pull on his mind, guiding him deeper into the forest. Fear and excitement battled within him, but he stepped forward, drawn by a force he could not resist. Each step was a step into mystery, into wonder, into a reality that felt far larger than the small town he had always known. And though he did not yet see her, he knew that someone or something was waiting for him. Someone who would change everything he thought he knew about the world and about himself. By the time he reached a clearing in the forest, the lights had formed a shape, a tall, majestic figure, radiant and calm. He could not believe his eyes, yet every instinct in his body told him that this was real. A presence so powerful and gentle, it felt like the universe itself had taken form. His heart pounded, and tears filled his eyes. He did not understand how he knew, but deep inside, he felt that this was the moment he had been waiting for his entire life. The moment when the ordinary world would end, and something extraordinary would begin. The figure before him was unlike anything he had ever imagined, standing tall and graceful, surrounded by a soft, glowing light. It radiated warmth and calm power. He could not see a face clearly, but somehow he felt every emotion the being carried. Wisdom, gentleness, patience, and something ancient, as if she had existed long before Earth itself. For a moment, he could not speak. He only stood, frozen, heart-pounding, feeling both fear and awe. Then, in a way that surprised him, he understood her words. Not through his ears, but through his mind, through feelings and images that seemed to flow into him naturally. "You have been waiting," she communicated, and he felt it deep in his chest. "I have been waiting for you too." He tried to respond, but no words came out. Instead, he nodded, and she smiled. Or at least, he felt the warmth of a smile, gentle and comforting. The clearing around them seemed to pulse with life. Trees glowed faintly, as if lit from within. The air vibrated softly, not with sound, but with energy he could feel in his skin, in his bones. The queen's presence filled everything, and yet she did not overwhelm him. Instead, she guided him, as if leading him toward understanding, without speaking a single word aloud. She showed him visions. They were quick, flashing, like a film in his mind, but he could understand them perfectly. He saw cities that floated above clouds, structures of shimmering light, and landscapes where the colors were brighter than anything he had ever known. He saw beings made entirely of energy, communicating through feelings and light, moving gracefully through their world. Each vision filled him with awe, wonder, and a sense of belonging he had never felt on Earth. "You are not alone," she communicated next. "There are many worlds, many beings, and you have a place among them. You have always had a connection, even if you did not know it." He felt a shiver run down his spine. How could this be real? Could someone, some being, truly know him like this? How could the universe reach out to a single person in a quiet town? And why him? Questions crowded his mind, but there were no answers yet. Only feelings, impressions, and a pull that he could not resist. As he took a hesitant step closer, he realized that the queen was guiding him, not just physically, but emotionally. Fear melted into curiosity. Hesitation turned into a quiet courage. He felt as if he had been preparing for this moment his entire life through dreams, strange experiences, and the endless staring at the stars. Everything that had seemed random, everything that had felt like small mysteries in his ordinary life, suddenly made sense. Time seemed to stretch and bend. Minutes could have been hours. Hours could have been seconds. He could not tell if the night outside the forest clearing had passed, or if it was still the same moment. Yet none of that mattered. All that mattered was the connection, the understanding, and the presence of the being before him. The queen revealed more. He felt images of Earth from above, the oceans, the mountains, and the cities, but also of faraway planets, bright and strange, each with its own life, its own rhythm, its own intelligence. He realized that Earth was only one of countless worlds, and that the beings he saw were part of a vast interconnected universe. The thought was overwhelming, yet it filled him with a sense of purpose he had never known. "You have a choice," she communicated gently, and this time he understood the words clearly. "You can stay in your world, live your life as it has always been, or you can step forward with me, learn, and see the worlds beyond your own." His chest tightened. The idea of leaving everything familiar terrified him. Yet the pull to explore, to understand, to be part of something greater, was stronger than anything he had ever felt. He thought of his small town, of his family and friends, of the streets and buildings he knew so well. Could he really leave it all behind? But then he realized that even if he stayed, he would never truly belong. There had always been a gap, a sense that life on Earth was too small, too limited for what he felt inside. The queen's presence offered not just adventure, but meaning. He reached out with his mind touching hers in the way she had shown him. He felt her response immediately, gentle, patient, inviting. There was no pressure, only understanding. He realized that she did not want to force him, only to guide him, to give him the chance to make his own decision. He felt a wave of trust. He had never known, and it surprised him how quickly it came. Suddenly, the forest seemed to change around them. The trees shimmered more brightly. The lights above swirled like a quiet dance, and the air was filled with soft warmth. He understood that this place was not ordinary, that it existed in more than one way at once, part of both the Earth he knew and something far beyond it. And in that moment, he understood the queen's patience, her wisdom, and the depth of her power. She was not threatening. She was not demanding. She was simply showing him what he could not see for himself and giving him the choice to step forward. Questions came again, though this time they were different. He wondered why she had chosen him, why she had reached out to someone so ordinary. He realized that the answer was not simple. He was special, but not in ways he fully understood. He had been preparing unknowingly for this connection all his life, and perhaps he realized the world itself had been preparing him. Hours seemed to pass, though he had no way of knowing. He spoke aloud, finally words that had been trapped in his mind for years. What do I need to do?" The queen's response was gentle but clear, an understanding that needed no words. She showed him the path, not by telling, but by letting him feel it. Step by step, choice by choice, he could move forward, and he could also step back. The freedom to choose was part of the lesson, part of the trust she offered. As dawn approached, the lights in the clearing softened. The queen began to fade from view, not disappearing, but becoming part of the air, part of the forest, part of the quiet energy that filled the clearing. He felt no fear, only anticipation. He knew this was not the end, only the beginning. The awe moment had changed him, opened doors in his mind and heart he had never imagined, and given him a glimpse of a world far beyond the one he had always known. For the first time in his life, he felt that the unknown was not something to fear. It was something to embrace. He realized that this encounter would shape the rest of his life, guiding him, teaching him, and preparing him for the journey that lay ahead. And as he left the clearing and returned to the edge of the forest, he knew that he would return, and that one day, he would step forward fully into the worlds the queen had shown him, not as an ordinary person, but as someone who had been chosen, prepared, and ready to explore the vast, endless mysteries of the universe. After the encounter in the forest, he could not stop thinking about the queen, her presence, her light, and the way she had communicated without words, haunted him in the quiet moments of the day. At work, he found himself staring out the window, imagining the world she had shown him, the cities above clouds, the beings of light, and the feeling that he had a place somewhere beyond Earth. Nothing seemed ordinary anymore. The streets he had walked daily felt smaller, the town quieter, the world limited in a way that made him ache. Sleep was no longer an escape, but a doorway. In dreams, the queen appeared again, guiding him gently, showing him more of the universe. He saw planets with oceans that glowed like liquid silver, forests that shimmered with colors that changed with the wind, and beings that seemed to exist entirely in harmony with each other and their world. He felt a longing he could not describe, a desire to step into that universe and understand it fully. Yet every time he woke, the safety and familiarity of his own room reminded him of what he would leave behind. The choice weighed heavily on him. To stay meant returning to a life he had always known, among people who loved him, but could never truly understand the pull he felt. To go with the queen meant leaving everything familiar, risking the unknown, stepping into a reality that no one else could prepare him for. His mind circled over the possibilities. What would his family think? Could he ever see them again if he left? Was he ready to give up everything he had known? Fear tangled with excitement, and he spent days pacing, thinking, and questioning himself. Yet the queen's presence lingered in subtle ways. Sometimes he would feel her watching, not with eyes, but with an energy that warmed him, like sunlight on the skin. Objects in his home seemed to react gently to his mood. Lights flickering softly when he felt doubt, a sudden breeze when he felt courage. These small signs reminded him that the universe was larger than he had ever known, and that he had been chosen for a reason he could not yet understand. One evening, he returned to the forest. He felt a strange mixture of fear and anticipation as he stepped among the trees. The clearing was the same, yet different. The air hummed with energy, alive with subtle motion. The lights appeared again, pulsing softly, and he felt the queen's presence stronger than ever. She did not speak in words, yet he understood her intention. She wanted him to see clearly before he made any decision. Visions came again, clearer this time. He saw Earth from above, fragile and beautiful, a small blue sphere in the vast darkness. He saw his town tiny against the expanse, his family and friends living their quiet lives, unaware of the larger universe just beyond their understanding. And then he saw other worlds, planets with floating cities, beings of pure light, communicating through thoughts and emotions, civilizations that had existed for millennia in harmony. He felt awe, joy, and also a deep responsibility. These worlds were real, and somehow he was connected to them. The queen's message was simple but powerful. She communicated a feeling. This connection, this knowledge, was not just for him, it was a responsibility. He had a choice, but the path he chose would shape more than his own life. The thought was heavy, almost too much to bear. Could he truly step forward and embrace such responsibility? Could he risk the life he had known for something uncertain? Yet the pull within him grew stronger with each passing moment. He thought about the loneliness he had always felt, the sense that he did not fully belong in the world he had grown up in. Friends and family cared for him, yet they could never understand the depth of his curiosity, the way he longed for something beyond. The Queen had shown him a reality where he did belong, where he was needed, where his presence mattered. The Koidora choice became not just about leaving or staying, but about being true to himself, being true to the purpose he had always felt, but never understood. Days passed as he wrestled with the decision. He wandered the town aimlessly at times, walking familiar streets and looking at familiar faces, trying to reconcile the world he knew with the world he had seen. Every corner seemed smaller now, every conversation lighter in comparison to the visions in his mind. He realized that staying meant a life of comfort, but also a life of longing. Going meant risk, yes, but also discovery, growth, and a chance to become part of something much larger than himself. The turning point came quietly, without fanfare. One morning, standing at the edge of the forest, he felt a clarity he had never experienced before. He realized that fear had kept him from fully seeing the possibilities. Fear had held him in place. But now he understood that courage did not mean the absence of fear. Courage meant stepping forward despite it. He looked into the forest, into the soft glow of the clearing, where the Queen waited, and felt a deep, undeniable certainty. He was ready. He stepped into the forest with a calm resolve. Each step felt lighter than it should have, as if the world itself was supporting him. The trees seemed to lean gently, guiding him toward the clearing, toward the being who had changed his understanding of reality. When he arrived, the Queen was there, radiant and serene, and he felt a wave of emotion, relief, joy, anticipation, and gratitude all at once. He understood that he had made the choice not just with his mind, but with his heart. The Queen communicated a feeling of approval, a warmth that filled him completely. She did not need words. He knew he had made the right choice. The forest seemed to celebrate with him. Lights danced, the air hummed softly, and a quiet energy flowed through everything around him. For the first time, he felt a sense of unity with the universe, a connection that was not frightening, but comforting, not overwhelming, but empowering. He realized that leaving Earth, stepping into the unknown, was not about abandoning home. It was about expanding home, redefining it, and understanding that the universe itself was vast and filled with possibilities. The Queen was not only a guide, but a partner in this journey, showing him that he was never truly alone. That even in the most distant reaches of space, connection and purpose could exist. As night fell over the forest, he felt peace for the first time in years. The fear that had once held him back melted into excitement and determination. He understood that every choice he had made in life had led him here, that every strange dream, every moment of curiosity had prepared him for this moment. He looked at the Queen, and for the first time, he felt ready to embrace the life and destiny she had offered him. He knew the journey ahead would be difficult, filled with unknown challenges and discoveries. But he was no longer afraid. He had made his choice. He would follow her, step into the world she had shown him, and learn everything he could. And though he did not yet know the full extent of what lay ahead, he felt a quiet certainty. This was where he belonged. This was what he had been waiting for. And he was ready to step fully into the universe that had always been calling him. The moment he stepped forward with the Queen, the forest around them seemed to dissolve. He felt weightless, as if the ground itself had disappeared, replaced by a gentle flow of energy that carried him forward. Colors swirled around him, brighter and more vivid than anything he had ever seen. The air hummed softly, filled with warmth, and he felt the presence of the Queen beside him, calm and guiding. There was no fear, only awe and anticipation, a sense that he was entering a world beyond imagination. He could feel his body changing, not in shape, but in perception. Every sense was sharper, every thought clearer. He realized he was experiencing the universe in a way that humans on Earth never could. The Queen guided him with subtle gestures, gentle nudges of thought that led him toward understanding. He learned to see not just with his eyes, but with his mind and heart, perceiving energy, intention, and connection all around him. Their journey took them first to a city that floated above clouds. Buildings of shimmering light rose into the sky, glowing softly, connected by bridges that seemed to be made of pure energy. Beings moved gracefully through the city, their forms radiant and elegant, communicating without words. The Queen showed him how to feel their language, a subtle flow of thought and emotion that carried meaning more clearly than spoken words ever could. He realized that this was a society built on understanding and harmony, without fear, without confusion, and without unnecessary conflict. He learned quickly. The Queen encouraged him to reach out, to connect with the beings, and he felt their acceptance immediately. It was as if they had been waiting for him too. He experienced joy and wonder, a sense of belonging he had never known on Earth. Every moment was a lesson, every interaction a step toward understanding the deeper fabric of the universe. He began to see that life could exist in forms and patterns far beyond what he had ever imagined. Next, they traveled to landscapes of breathtaking beauty. Rivers glowed with colors that shifted with the wind. Forests shimmered like living rainbows. Mountains floated in the sky, defying gravity, and he could feel their energy, ancient and powerful. The Queen taught him to sense the balance of these worlds, to understand that every being, every plant, every element was connected. He realized that life was not just about survival or competition, it was about harmony, purpose, and the quiet understanding that every action mattered. During their journey, they encountered challenges not of danger, but of growth. He struggled at first to communicate fully, to understand the energy of the beings, to perceive the hidden patterns of the worlds. The Queen guided him patiently, showing him that learning was not about rushing, but about feeling, observing, and trusting. He experienced moments of doubt, but each time he faltered, the Queen's calm presence reminded him that mistakes were part of the journey, and understanding came step by step. He began to feel a deeper connection with the Queen. She was not just a guide, but a companion, patient and wise. He learned from her not just about the universe, but about himself, his fears, his strengths, his potential. He realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward. Despite it, he discovered patience, empathy, and trust, understanding that these qualities were essential to the journey he had begun. One day, they reached a place where the sky was filled with floating lights, each one carrying the memory of a life, a civilization, or a world. The Queen showed him how to touch them, to feel their stories, and understand the lessons they carried. He saw civilizations rise and fall, saw beings make choices that shaped entire worlds, and he felt the weight of connection, the responsibility of understanding. The universe was alive, not just in space, but in every choice, every thought, every action. Through it all, the Queen guided him gently, but firmly. She taught him that his presence in these worlds was meaningful, that he had been chosen not by accident, but because he could make a difference. He felt a quiet pride and a deep humility. He was not the most powerful, the most knowledgeable, or the most extraordinary in these worlds, but he had something valuable: curiosity, empathy, and the willingness to learn. These qualities, he realized, were what mattered most. By the time they returned to the clearing where his journey had begun, he had changed completely. He understood the universe in ways that went beyond words. He had felt the lives of countless beings, seen worlds of unimaginable beauty, and experienced a connection that filled him with purpose. The forest no longer felt small. Earth no longer felt limiting. He knew that his journey was just beginning, that the lessons he had learned would guide him for the rest of his life, and that the Queen would remain beside him, patient and wise, as they continued exploring together. And though he had traveled far beyond the Earth, he knew he felt no separation. The world he had left behind was still home, still important. But now home was larger, more expansive, and filled with connection. He had discovered not just other worlds, but a deeper understanding of life itself, the importance of harmony, trust, courage, and the quiet power of empathy. The journey had transformed him, preparing him for the next step, the next challenge, the next discovery in a universe far greater than he had ever imagined. Returning to Earth with the Queen was not the same as leaving it. They did not arrive unnoticed, but the change was subtle, almost imperceptible. People around him felt something new, though they could not describe it. A warmth in the air, a quiet sense of peace, and a gentle energy that seemed to flow from him wherever he went. The Queen's presence remained, though hidden from ordinary eyes. He felt it, a constant guide, a source of understanding and calm. He realized that home had changed. It was no longer only the town he had grown up in, the streets he had walked daily, or the people he knew. Home was larger, a combination of the familiar and the extraordinary. Home was connection, the understanding that every person, every life, every choice mattered, and that he had the ability to influence the world positively even in small ways. People began to notice subtle differences. His friends and family felt calmer, happier, more connected, though they did not know why. Small events brought joy. Flowers bloomed brighter, birds seemed to sing more clearly, and strangers smiled at each other more often. The presence of the Queen, though unseen, had shifted the balance of the world around him, reminding him that change could be gentle and powerful at the same time. He spent days reflecting on the journey, thinking about the worlds he had seen and the lessons he had learned. He remembered the floating cities, the glowing forests, and the beings of light. Each memory was vivid, almost tangible, and he realized that these experiences were now part of him. They shaped how he thought, how he felt, and how he interacted with the world. The knowledge he had gained was not just information. It was understanding, a new way of living that honored connection, empathy, and balance. The Queen communicated with him silently, teaching him still, showing him that learning never truly ends. She guided him through moments of doubt and fear, helping him understand that courage was ongoing, that responsibility was a constant companion, and that even small actions could ripple outward in ways he might never see. He felt gratitude not just for her guidance, but for the opportunity to see the universe through eyes that were both human and aware of the larger whole. Eventually, he returned fully to the life he had known, but nothing was the same. Work, friends, family, and the town itself felt more alive, more meaningful. He understood that he could carry the lessons of the universe into daily life, creating harmony, connection, and understanding wherever he went. The Queen had shown him that even ordinary life could be extraordinary when seen with awareness and purpose. He also understood that this was only the beginning. The universe was vast, full of life, and full of possibilities. The Queen had given him a doorway, and he had stepped through, but there were still mysteries to explore, connections to make, and lessons to learn. He felt excitement rather than fear, anticipation rather than anxiety, knowing that the journey would continue in ways he could not yet imagine. And then one evening, as the sun set in brilliant colors over the town, he felt her presence beside him, stronger than ever. She whispered not in words but in feeling, in energy, and understanding. "It's time to go home together." He felt a warmth and certainty fill him, and he realized that home was not a place, but a state of being. It was where he belonged, where connection and purpose intersected, and where he could continue to grow, learn, and explore with the Queen beside him. From that moment, life became a new adventure. He walked among people, seeing them clearly, understanding them, and feeling the impact of even small acts of kindness. He looked at the sky with wonder, knowing that countless worlds awaited discovery, and he felt a bond with the universe that was unbreakable. The Queen remained a quiet companion, guiding him, teaching him, and reminding him that the journey of life was infinite, filled with light, connection, and purpose. He understood now that courage, curiosity, and empathy were the keys to life, and that home was not limited to one place, one world, or one life. It was wherever love, understanding, and purpose existed. And with the Queen beside him, he was ready to continue, knowing that he was never alone, that the universe itself had welcomed him, and that every step forward was a step into something extraordinary.